All right, want to do one more real quick?
Sure.
Okay, let's leave it running.
And we do this.
Hey everybody, I'm Brad Peebler.
And I'm Yazan Malkosh.
Pixel Fondue. We're only missing Greg, Adam. So many contributors. I don't want to go through the list. I'll forget about somebody. Ellery, Richard, William,
Didi, everybody.
Vaughn.
I'm missing one of them.
There's a lot of cheese in the fondue pot.
That's right.
I want to talk to you a little bit about one thing we mentioned. So the previous video we talked about AMD and their announcements, but we didn't talk too much about some of the other presentations. Two that I thought were interesting. One was the
University of California.
University of Southern California talking about PTSD, and the other one was 7th floor talking about
Third floor.
Third floor.
Third floor.
Third floor.
Previz.
Third floor. Third floor. Why do I think 7th floor?
I don't know.
7th floor is 4 floors better.
Yes.
So
it's probably how they're gonna
third floor
expand.
Sorry guys. Did a great. It was an interesting conversation about how Previz in film has been real time for the last decade.
Right.
And so they're kind of uniquely positioned in the space. And right now it is because of VR, regardless of where VR goes.
Right.
It has changed the way we look at real time.
Yeah.
It is
real time is taking off.
Real time is going crazy.
More
You
mainstream.
can see it from Adam. You can see it in what Unreal is doing. I know, a lot of Christian Block, who's our good friend in the Moto community, has been doing real-time production for TV series for years now. But it's really, the tools we have available, it's an embarrassment. Like you said, there's so many tools available.
Way too many.
It's amazing. So the PTSD one, that was near and dear to me because, as you know, I'm always talking about the therapeutic benefits, potential of virtual reality.
Right.
And so they were showing or talked about how they use simulating wartime events for soldiers.
It was it was interesting. It's just that ability to be in that environment again, and them to they said they basically had a controller person that would control how things behaved around that person. But truly, people who have been in those situations, and he's mentioned other. There's not the only one. There are civilians that have been into that. But being in that kind of circumstance and having to go and live through it again in a way that emotionally heals that person, that's pretty damn big.
Yeah,
that's a pretty insane way to heal someone.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that's the immersion therapy is one, and then the counter side to that, what we've talked about before, is the burn victims who play the video game that makes them feel like they're a penguin sliding down an icy hill throwing snowballs, which dramatically reduces their perceived pain.
Right. And just two different methods of healing.
Yeah, but it's
one is dealing with it, and one is kind of removing you away from it, and it's interesting to see kind of
those
two things.
It's fascinating to see something that's not just video games.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier. You mentioned the flip side to the
the sinister. That's the dark side of my brain.
They're building these simulations, these wartime simulations to heal, but you
literally reverse it, and you just desensitize people.
You're as a wartime simulation to kill, and this is my big concern about VR in general, and is that it if we're not careful with the titles we author and the content we author, it can be something that's very I've never been one to talk badly about violent video games. I've played my fair share of Unreal Tournament.
Mortal Kombat?
I was not a Mortal Kombat guy, but I played. We used to play a ton of Unreal Tournament in the early Luxology days.
Yeah.
We used to have these massive death matches, and we were a distributed team, so we would all join a server. Like there'd be a certain part of the day.
Who's the best?
Oh, Alan Hastings.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I could have called that one out.
Eric Solby also was just death on a stick. But I played that game a lot.
Yeah.
And it never once made me want to go out and shoot and kill something.
Yeah.
There were other reasons that but
it's sad because you've heard the news. A lot of things are happening like that in the world. I just don't want to see a world where that stuff becomes even more normal. Like that is a more normal way of living by being entrenched in those experiences. That is a pretty scary world. That's a pretty scary world. Well, you'll have an agenda plus the actual sensitization.
And if we make it, if there's something in our brains that keeps us from committing terrible atrocities, and if we're not careful, and we start to chip away at that little something, that little barrier, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I guess the meta point there about why then is VR for people. The interesting to me, I talked to so many people in our industry who have not put on a headset.
Why?
I don't have access. They don't think it's going to be interesting, or maybe
Right.
they've done a cardboard and was like, big
Yeah.
deal. Or they did Gear VR, which is not as ghetto as cardboard, but still not as luxurious as
the Vive.
as a Vive. But when you put it on,
It's
when
different.
you put on a Vive and you're in there, it's a different situation.
It is. I mean, being one that I've gone to design companies who've used it for visualization. I've put some of the early stuff on. I get nauseated pretty quickly from that stuff. I've tried the cardboard. I was like, okay, it's interesting, but the moment I put the Vive on and Tilt Brush was on there, it blew my mind in that it wasn't like I'm gonna get used to it in 3 to 5 seconds. It was instant. I was in there. I was done. The moment I had the control in my hand, I was like, that's it. I'm here. I'm here for the next hour or two at least. And that's a very different experience than what people think VR. Because I think VR has been around like 10 to 15, even more years.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the Nintendo with the red screen and stuff. I mean, from that time,
Virtual Boy.
Yeah, and but I think people just have an understanding of what VR is rather than what VR is today.
Right.
I think that's probably why.
Yeah, and I regardless of how widespread it becomes, I do think it's going to continue to have a profound impact on our industry as a display device and as an input technology.
Right.
Once you see more content creation tools, the other thing is it's so much easier.
Yeah.
Like if you set someone from a Moto and you gave them the preset browser,
right,
and you said, lay out this room,
right.
First, half of them wouldn't know that you hold down the Alt key plus left mouse button.
Yeah.
Whereas in VR, there is no Alt left.
Yeah.
It's you do this.
Right.
And you need to move this over here.
Yeah.
You do that.
Yeah. No, it was
totally different.
I remember the first thing I did. I just gotten the two controllers in my hand, put the Vive on, and the first thing I did was I outlined basically what is a wireframe of a car.
Yeah.
That was the first thing in my mind. I did it. And then Derek came by, and then Derek put it on. And the first thing he did was pop into the engine of my car and started looking around into the engine. And I was like, I didn't think about that because there are even with polygons and things like that, you have to worry about going in and out. And there's none of that. And then there's no latency, which is I think they've done some beautiful engineering in there.
Yeah.
And even the UI aspect, but you don't think about where you're with the mouse, you have to be precise. You're looking at somewhere, look at a screen. It felt like the Cintiq of 3D world,
right?
Because you're touching that pixel, but in 3D now. So what the Cintiq did for the Photoshop, this is kind of doing it in 3D.
Right. That's a good analogy. Yeah. The number of times I have grabbed, for example, a light in Moto,
right,
and in screen space moved it down and towards my subject, and then I turned the viewpoint and it's like down here,
right?
And my eye, because I can't tell really. Is it going that way or is it going that way?
There's none of that because it's there.
Exactly. I need it here.
Yeah, and I want to continue. One of the coolest things was, I made a big line. My hand is extended, but now if I move around and I come back and I want to touch that line again, it's natural. You go, you move it, and you continue whatever you're working on.
The thing about Tilt Brush is it's beautiful for what it does.
Right.
It's very limited. When I was at Oculus, and I'm assuming it's okay to talk about this, but with Medium and Quill, they've worked very hard on this concept of asset scale. Yeah. Which is kind of a non-destructive temporary state of the thing. It's really more about how you're viewing it. Mm-hmm. So, you can start sculpting. You hear people talking about, well, if you're sculpting like this all day, your arm's going to get tired, blah, blah, blah. I guess sculptors have been doing that for many years. But
did you have big arms?
Just your right arm. Yeah. But you can sculpt at scale for a while, and then you can sit down and go, and then you have that model in your hand, and you sit there and you do fine details, and then you go, and you scale it back up, or you want to have it on your lap and work on it for a while. And you can't really do that with Tilt Brush. Tilt Brush,
no, it's very like you said, it's very limited, but I think it is profound in kind of how it's going to affect. I think it's not just that it's a tool, but it's an inspirational kind of portal to what
Yeah.
you could do.
You know how you have designers who talk about arcs all the time.
Yeah.
That was another
natural curves and arcs.
Yeah, natural curves. That was another thing that I don't remember if I talked about this on the podcast before, but one of my first tilt brush experiences, because I like to do stupid things, I laid down on my back.
Right.
And then I was just like drawing stuff over.
Was everything with an arc?
And then when I stood up, and looked back on it,
everything was curved.
Everything had this beautiful, perfect arc that matches
your hand.
Swing of my arm, right, like this.
Right.
And of course.
Yeah.
But seeing it and then getting up, I did this like like a Zen doodle pattern. But when I stood up, it was like on a tortoise shell shape. And I was like, okay, that could be a pain if you want it to be flat.
Right.
But B, that's awesome.
Right.
No, but also, of course, it did that, But you don't get that kind of arc. On the computer, you get this.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because if you ever seen somebody study animations or study the movement of people and the natural curves that are coming in around from like movement of your hand movements, usually they're beautiful. They look naturally comfortable, I guess, to a viewer, and I think that's what designers are looking for, what artists are looking for when they are sketching and designing.
A long time ago, Arnie and I Arnie Cashlin is one of the original Moto programmers. We were talking about synthetic motion and how everything is in a kind of a sine.
Right.
And so if you take channel modifiers and you take the sine modifier, was it the oscillator?
Yeah.
Take the oscillator. It's kind of fun. You could take a very simple like character made of boxes and just put oscillators on every joint and then just work on the phase and change the phase so that they start off and they're all the same. But then you start to change the phase.
Oh, yeah.
And you start to get these very natural, very flowing, cool motions.
Maybe you should continue some of that research. I think Disney came out with something where you would basically draw a curve and they would build an actual gear-based system that would show physically how they could make that movement.
They were 3D printing them.
Yeah.
It
was cool.
That was super
awesome.
cool.
It was awesome stuff.
All right. Speaking of awesome stuff, we should probably
wrap it up.
All right, thanks everybody. That's episode 2 of SIGGRAPH 2016, unless we count VR socks.
VR socks, it's 0.
That was episode prime.
0.
That was the final. Still wearing my VR socks, by the way. They still feel totally real. All right, have a great evening or day or whatever, and we'll be back at you whenever. Cheers.
Bye.
Net.